Montgomery. I'm a bassist living in Atlanta, Georgia, originally from Arkansas. My dad grew up in Mississippi, my mother's from Oklahoma, and they kind of met in the middle. They had myself and my sister. I was the first musician in my family, too. I just got pulled into it through school. Hearing it first in the church, and then signing up for it at school to learn more about it in a different way. My church home was in Oklahoma, in Spiro, near actually Fort Coffee, where my mother is from. And that was my first introduction to music and hearing it being played by other people, live in front of me. But it was very different from what you would get in school. It was more. There weren't rules, but there are practices. A tradition almost in how music was performed there. It's deeply rooted to this deep Southern gospel tradition. Very typical for that area. I'm not sure what to say. So, for the first maybe 12 years of my life, the only live music that I heard was from the band that was at my church. And it was the same four instrumentalists. There was a drummer, a bass guitar, electric guitar, and a keyboard/organ. And my first instrument was actually the electric guitar because of the guy we had in that band. So when I started playing guitar, I signed up for lessons at a local store. And my teacher, he would ask me the songs that I wanted to learn and then tell me to bring CDs in. And it always impressed me that he would listen to the CD and then just know the song afterwards. And I just wanted to learn how he did that. But the parts of the songs I always had questions about were the bass lines because of the music I listened to. At that point in time, when I was in middle school, it was a lot of Motown and Diana Ross, Smokey Robinson, Marvin Gaye, B.B. King, even. Just the older stuff my parents would listen to. When I realized that the bass was the part of the song that I was hearing and wanted to learn how to play, I stopped taking guitar lessons and signed up for my school's orchestra. And I started playing bass on the upright, not the electric. But ever since then, it's just been my favorite instrument. It's the part of the music that speaks to me the most, the momentum in it, how it supports the band and helps carry the groove. Really, it's the foundation in a lot of, not only in songs, but in a lot of genres, not just American music. Most music everything has rhythm. Then there's the melody, then the bass. It's up there in its role. You can kind of feel it when you're sitting in an orchestra and you're playing against 50 or 60 other people. It'll be the horns or the reeds, violins playing a melody up high, and then when the bass comes in, it's like the breath. It's like when the world opens up. I think they call it a contrabass because before that in the orchestra, the bass voice was really almost the tenor. It's where the cello is. Most people don't know that bass is actually a transposing instrument. Our notes sound one octave lower than they are written. It's just interesting to me. Yeah, I just like how it sounds and feels. It sounds and feels when you're playing with other musicians playing bass. It's the most satisfying thing to me. So, studying your instrument in music school, there's definite pros and cons. The biggest pro, I think, is the information that you'll have access to. Well, if that's not the biggest one, there are also the networking opportunities and the people that you can meet. Because honestly, you're not going to find everything you need in a music school. There's a lot of things you will need to know to play that you won't get in music school, but they come from experiences that you have, but you might meet an individual that might start a relationship that leads to you getting those experiences. Another pro would be what you learn about music in general that isn't your own instrument. And that can help you in your process later down the road when you are trying to create your own project or write new songs and you want to be able to play them with other people. How do you communicate those thoughts, get them out of your head into someone else's, then out to the ether? But that could be a con for some if you wanted strictly to just play your instrument. But I guess another pro would just be seeing the other options that you have under the umbrella of music, like what else that could mean. Like you could play your instrument, or you could write music for your instrument, or others, or write songs for a singer, or write accompaniments, make arrangements of songs, write movie or video game music, write music for commercials. Imagine a day of your life with no music and all the gaps that would create. That's a different job you could have. And school may grant you access into some of those fields that are more difficult to get into. Cons. It's definitely difficult because it does include so much more than just playing your instrument. Like there's a workload that's unexpected by some, but it's not without purpose. Uh, that if you know what your goals are already before going to school, another one for the cons could be like the amount of time that it does take. That is a few years of commitment. If you already know what you're working towards and you have access to it already, you could potentially save time by going towards it directly. But so it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's not necessary at all. Most of the musicians we look up to didn't go to school at all, but it can help depending on the situation. I've met some individuals, really even in the last year, that I feel like I've learned almost as much from as I did in school. So originally, my bass player is it's not like a drum that has rhythms. We have to cover the drum part, but also play the notes too. But the most essential part is the rhythm, the groove, and how you feel in the band with your drummer, in the song. And still to this day, the very first bass player I knew is still my point of reference for what a groove is. His name is Johnny Smith, and he was the bassist out in the church I grew up in. called Mount Triumph, out in Fort Coffee, Oklahoma. But like he had a, I heard him maybe 2 or 3 times a week for like the first 15, 16 years of my life. And his concept of time was so solid that like I didn't know, like I didn't think bad drummers existed because he could make anyone sound like they were on a CD. Even if there was a guest sitting in, someone he's never played with before, it was just, there was a compromise, but it was also a reliable foundation. Like, not a compromise in the sense of being flexible in any setting, even if the setting is with other individuals. So like, he's my go-to for like how I approach working with a band or how I want to make a band sound. Then the most experience I had after that, before leaving my hometown, was playing with orchestras. I try to approach that just seeing what my job is in the group at the time, where if I have who has the melody right now, which part are we supporting, or playing the counter melody. Everything's intentional in an orchestra, so it kind of opens your ears up too to like how you want to arrange certain things. When you're playing with a smaller group, how do you bring those same elements that you would have, that you can do easily with 60, 70? How do you do it with 4 people? Like, make it have the same weight in the music, like the same presence. Yeah, growing up, I mostly played with orchestras before I moved out of Arkansas. My favorite one, the one that probably inspired me to move and start exploring new things, was my good friend, Mary Grogan. She started a program called Opera Maya, where we toured the eastern coast of Mexico, and like a show in a different place every night. But that was my first experience that opened me up to like the possibilities of playing music outside of where I was living. You could travel and meet all sorts of people, have experiences, see, smell and taste things that you never would have before. Like those kind of things, they stay with you, and whether you realize it or not at the time, it affects the music, and I think it makes it mean something more. You get a deeper relationship with it. So after the operas thing, that's when I got to more of the commercial side full time. For me, working with a band and a singer is like a condensed version of having an entire orchestra and a vocalist performing like an aria. I don't take the environments one more seriously than the other. I try to like still deliver a complete musical experience. And it's entirely possible too.